I have apologies from Mayor Wise, Councillor Mawson and Councillor Tariha, moved by Councillor Simpson, seconded Councillor Crystal. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. I'll do a call for any conflicts of interest. There being none, no announcements by myself. Any from management? There being none, I'll make a call for any minor matters not on the agenda. There being none, can I ask for a mover for our minutes from the 24th of October be taken as true and accurate? Move Councillor Price, seconded Councillor Brown. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Great, thank you. We're going to move into our project and activity update for City Strategy, and I'll pass over to the Director, Rachel Bailey, to introduce the team.
Kia ora koutou. So maybe we've got a few staff here to present to this, so perhaps I could ask to start with anyway George, Darren and Paulina to come up, and then we can move after that to Luke, Bill and Bruce. So councillors, this paper is our regular update that we do to you on the city strategy, key projects and initiatives. So today we'll be talking about the update on the Civic Precinct and Waka Hub from George and Darren, and then Paulina will cover quite a long list actually on the Ahuriri Regional Park, proposed district plan, the future development strategy, bylaw and policy schedule, climate action, Riverbend fast track consenting process that goes on, Te Muruai Te Whanga plan, and then we'll get into the next phase of the report. So I'll hand over now anyway to Darren and George.
Kia ora, councillors. I will give you a brief update on the Civic Precinct and where we are to date. I'll talk about two things in particular, particularly for the public will notice that on the corner of Hastings and Station Street that we're underway with the enabling works for the project. So that is the partial demolition of what was known as the Library Tower. So you'll notice that we're basically getting down to the skeleton of that building. This week we're removing all the exterior windows and all the external furniture and planters that were around that building. And then over the next 2 weeks we'll start removing all of the curtain walls, which are essentially those big concrete curtain walls facing east, west and north of the building. So they will come off over the next 3 to 4 weeks. Alongside that, we're currently in the middle of our tender process for the main contractor to begin work in early July. There's not much I can share because being a tender process, that's a reasonably confidential thing, but we will be coming back to elected members with a preferred main contractor in late April so we can move into the construction phase. That process is going as originally planned. So that's basically where we're at the moment. Everything else is essentially on track and on budget.
Thank you very much, Darren. I'll open up for questions on the Civic Precinct project. Councillor Gregg.
Yes, through you, Acting Mayor Brosnan. Just a question about the Civic Precinct Library. Is there any plan to put storyboards up to keep the public informed? It creates that sort of buzz. Is there any plan for that?
Through the chair, absolutely there is. Myself and our marketing team have just got some new updated imagery from the architectural team that we're hoping to put up on the hoardings in the next 2 to 6 weeks. We're also exploring opportunities around community art, opportunities around some murals on those hoardings as well. And on the matter of hoardings, we've been able to reuse a lot of the hoardings that were used at the Veronica Sunbay project for no extra cost to council, so that's a saving of the project as well.
Thank you very much, Darren.
Kia ora koutou, just here with an update on the Waka Hub. The design team have been working on the spatial master plan and the concept design over the last few months. We have gone through a wānanga process, which is part of the co-design approach that we've undertaken for that project. So there have been 4 wānanga through October, November and finally in January. And alongside that work, there is also work underway to develop a tripartite MOU, so Memorandum of Understanding, between Council, the Napier Sailing Club and Ātirangi Trust, which will define how the operations will work and the functionality of the Waka Hub in relation to Napier Sailing Club. And a workshop has also been undertaken with yourselves a couple of weeks ago with regard to discussing lease models. So we are bringing the concept design to you on the 27th of March. It has been taken to Ngā Nukunuka o Te Iwi first, which is next Friday on the 14th.
Thank you very much. Georgina, open for questions on the progress on the Waka Hub project. There being none. Welcome, Paulina.
Thank you. Kia ora, everyone. So I'll start with an update on the proposed district plan. We are fully in the process of hearings at the moment, with the last hearing happened on Monday this week. There's 3 more sets of hearings for the proposed district plan before we finalize hearing all the topics and submissions. The project is on track, and we are estimating decisions for the proposed district plan at the end of this year, so end of September. An update on the variations. The eco variation has been notified. We have received around 77 submissions to that variation, and the officers are in the process of summarizing these submissions and releasing a submission for further submissions by the end of May. The natural hazard variation has been put on hold, and the reason for this is there's a whole lot of different components within the local government and central government that has caused this delay. One is the regional policy statement that on natural hazard, including natural hazard, which is the higher hierarchy document, is going to be notified by the regional council on the beginning of next year. So that is important consideration for whatever we do in the district plan. There's also been delays with an announcement of a national policy statement on natural hazards that was going to be notified beginning of this year, but at the moment we don't know when there is the next date. So therefore, we don't want to go out to the community with a message of how we're going to manage natural hazard if we're going to receive all this other very important information from regional council and central government. Moving into an update on the future development strategy.
Paulina, I'll just pause and see if there's any questions on the proposed district plan. Just give that opportunity. No, happy to move on. Thank you.
Perfect. Through the chair, the future development strategy sets up the 30-year growth for Napier. We have been gone out to the community and engaged on the potential site for Napier and Hastings. This is a joint strategy with Hastings, the regional council, and us. 141 submissions have been received on the future development strategy, and we are preparing now to hold hearings under the Local Government Act. These are scheduled for the 24 and 27 of March. The idea is to have a final future development strategy in about mid-year this year.
Councillor Bogue.
Through you, Madam Chair. As part of an alternate to the Future Development Strategy Committee, when the commissioners are hearing the submissions, will we be able to see that online? Will that be available to the public for us to see it?
I can confirm that, but I would think that they would be probably available online.
Live.
Yes, because the future development strategy is a public document, so I can confirm and get back to you about that.
Thank you. We'll make an update about the live streaming of the future development strategy to come back to councillors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other FDS questions? No? Thank you, Pauline.
I just have a brief update about the freedom camping bylaw. So that was adopted on the 3rd of February. And officers are now preparing a paper that is going to come to council on the 26th of May, which set up all the next steps for implementation. So the implementation of the freedom camping bylaw is going to be in place by the 1st of July.
Great, thank you. I think you're good to carry on.
An update on the Climate Action Joint Committee. So officers have been busy preparing a regional risk assessment, which has been done by a consultant called Urban Intelligence. Internal officers and at the regional level have provided a lot of feedback to that. The idea is to release it to the public on the 31st of March for comments and for looking at all what it includes.
Thank you. Councillor Bogue.
Assuming it's understood that our climate change is fueled by carbon emissions, is there anything in this climate action which makes that link or looks at a stock take of our carbon emissions as a council or as a region?
Yes, absolutely. There have been several reports done on carbon emissions for the different authorities, and in Napier we are quite well advanced. We have established the base level of carbon that as an organization produce, and we keep on monitoring that for the future so we are able to report on that.
That won't be part of this climate action report, or is it?
That has been reported to the Climate Action Committee as well.
Thank you.
See if there's any more questions on the climate action update. Okay.
Just a quick update on the Riverbend fast track development. So the developers for the Riverbend have applied to the Environmental Protection Agency to go through a fast track process rather than resort consent, which is the most common way of submitting applications. And Napier City Council has been invited to provide the feedback in terms of the adequacy of this pathway. We have provided that feedback, and now we're waiting to hear from the APA whether they would endorse this development to go through that process. If they do, we would have Napier City Council will have another opportunity to provide detailed feedback and raise any concerns or opportunity this development brings.
Questions on the Riverbend Road update? Okay.
And I have really good news about the Tumuruai o Te Whanga plan. You probably are aware that the final plan was endorsed on a meeting on the 14th of February in Waihoki Marae. This plan set up the improving the health and well-being of the Tumuruai o Te Whanga, and it comes from the settlement of Man Ahuriri, the settlement claim. So it's part of their implementation of that claim. And this higher order document would be considered in our resort consent applications or any policy development for the future. So it will be taken into consideration and account.
Great. Thank you, Paulina. I will ask if there's any questions on Te Muruai o Te Whanga or any of the previous ones Paulina has covered. Councillor Bogue.
It's kind of a bit off the beaten track, but in terms of the old civic building, which is now going to be part, as you know, of the library, there was, when it was demolished, a mural on the side that was a detachable, that was done probably in 2016, 2017 as part of a whole suite of murals, many of which are still standing, like the one on the aquarium. And it was detachable, so it was taken away and stored somewhere unknown. And I was wondering, it would have been nice to have found a place for it, but I was wondering if anybody knows where it is. and if anything's going to happen to it?
It's still currently in storage with a lot of other bits and pieces that have come out of those council buildings over the last 7 years. Somewhere in Onikau, I forget the name of, I think it's Hushier Place is our storage facility there,
Okay.
and I believe it's stored there.
Okay, it was quite special. It was done by an American.
Yes, I'm aware of
It's
its,
called Cryptic.
its
Yeah.
background, and we've kept all that information as part of the wider.
Right, well, let's
Mural.
not forget about it completely.
No, there's a list of all of those pieces of artwork that have come out of both those buildings, so that's
Okay.
all on a spreadsheet, and so we'll have that information, and that won't disappear with people coming and going from council over the years, so we do have that information.
Thank you, Darren. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think we had a bit of a public appeal at the time. If anyone had a building they would like to put it on, to please get in touch with council. So maybe this isn't, if that's correct, a good time to reiterate that that's still an option for that piece.
Through the chair, yes, that was something that did come up at a previous council meeting, yes, and that's still an option.
Fantastic. If you have a big wall and would like a mural on it in Napier, maybe come and have a talk to the team.
Right, thank you very much. We'll call up now Luke, Bill and Bruce, and we'll go through parking, economic development and EPMO.
Kia ora, gentlemen.
Kia ora. Just by way of update around parking, the Herschel Street project has been, stage one, the new retaining wall has been completed. It's due to be painted in the coming weeks. So that retaining wall is obviously providing a fair bit more stability and security to the properties above and surrounding. And also allows us now to look at moving into stage two, which is the groundworks, in order to provide an additional 20 car parking spaces in that area. The parking strategy, following on from the workshop we did late last year, we've gained some feedback from Ahuriri and Taradale Business Inc. around the need to look at their parking issues facing those areas. And along with that, we are doing new modelling, which is, I believe, almost complete, to give us a real clear picture of what the issues are that are facing the CBD, Taradale and also Ahuriri. So we've got a workshop booked in for later this month where we'll be able to bring that information to you, along with a real clear problem definition and some options for you to consider to move forward in addressing those parking issues.
Great, thank you for the parking project update. We'll ask for questions, and we'll start with Councillor Gregg.
Yes, through you, Acting Mayor Brosnan. So does the parking strategy include other ways of reducing parking pressures, such as promoting public transport instead of car use, car sharing, and encouraging walking and cycling?
Through the chair, they're considerations, but it's not something that we will actively promote as part of that piece of work. Obviously, use of alternative forms of transport is something that we're always looking at through the work we do as, business as usual. We've got some work that the policy team have been doing on Locky Docks, which is the use of e-bike charging stations that are going to be located throughout the city, improvements to bikeways, bike lanes and that sort of thing. So that sits a little bit separate to what we're trying to achieve through this parking strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. Are there any further questions on the parking activity? Right, look forward to the workshop. Thank you, Luke.
Right, Bill, do you want to give us an update on economic development?
Yeah, kia ora koutou. With the economic development reporting, I always tend to go for far horizon first, because that has typically an effect on New Zealand as a smaller country. So obviously globally, there's a lot of sort of interesting things happening, and the latest thing is the possibility of agricultural tariffs being put on the $9 billion worth of exports that we send to the United States. So that will change everything altogether if that happens first. But trade wars and shocks notwithstanding, the view of the global IMF and the World Bank is that there will still be growth of 3%, and that should be echoed, and that's what we see with our National Reserve Bank, despite that Adrian Orr has suddenly disappeared suddenly without a press conference. But inflation has been controlled. The interest rates are now being reduced. So there's no reason to think that the slow growth and recovery should not happen at this stage. And certainly this has translated into our resilient businesses in Napier, of which there's a very similar number of businesses in Napier as there was 12 months ago. And the GDP is the same as it was 12 months ago as well, which, given that the inflation is down, it means that we're holding steady. We're not doing spectacularly, but we are holding steady. In terms of the amount of money spent in January, that was almost exactly the same at 100 million in the CBD and outlying areas and online. And then we haven't got the card spend figures yet for February, but we did see a 7% rise in foot traffic around Art Deco, which is really good to see. Anyway, in terms of our strategies, what we're doing with economic development was that when we originally spoke to our businesses, they wanted more collaboration and they wanted more events, and so that's what we're still working towards, which is the same strategy as last year, with the addition of a couple of things, of working closely with the Awatoto Industry Action Group to look at secondary flood protection for an economically significant area of the region and the country as a whole. There's fairly complex issues with that, so we're designing a workshop to bring back to Council to walk through alongside the Awatoto Industry Action Group, and that's booked in for the end of like 20th of March sort of time. So we'll come back and present on those complexities, both of the technical and the financing around that. We also have the business talent and attraction project that we're working on in association with the Reader and the research that the Reader has done. And what we're keen to do with this is to make sure we're not just having a non-targeted, nice Instagram-branded campaign, but actually we're going to have specific goals and targets that we agree. What are Napier's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, and how do we leverage those? What are the sort of people and businesses that we want to attract to Napier that will add value, and who will also gain the most value? So obviously we know we live in a fantastic place. We've got amazing schools. We don't have a lot of area of land for big factories in Napier, but we can be smart about the sort of things we can do, and so tech startups, those sort of things. There's a great opportunity and a fantastic infrastructure for the sustainable growth that we want to have, and which fits in within the aims of being a great place for people to live and work in Napier. Additionally, we have the ongoing events. So in association with Napier City Business, the business breakfast will be starting up again. Unfortunately, ANZ's economist wasn't available at the start of the year, so that will be later. But we've got a great lineup of people who will innovate, excite and inform our business community. We also have an exciting visit from our sister city in Japan. Obviously, again, in an uncertain world, we want all the friends that we could get, and this is a special relationship of a great country and business that has invested greatly through PanPac, and as we've seen both in the municipal theatre and other places, the aquarium. It's a long-standing relationship, and we very much look forward to celebrating our 45th anniversary with a delegation coming from Tomakomai. They're also keen to do an officer exchange, so we'll be sending someone over in September for 3 months to help prepare for that, and also to work with all of the various agencies to look at the economic, educational, social and business benefits that we can gain from that relationship. I think that's about all. But sponsorships, we're doing the usual sponsorships again in terms of our relationships with the Young Enterprise Scheme, Hawke's Bay Export Awards, Business Awards. We've got a couple of other interesting ones in there as well. But other than that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Bill. Councillor Bogue.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. On page 10, it mentions that the median household income is 82.9Ks. How does this compare with the national median, or perhaps Hawke's Bay, Hastings, or other figures?
It's sort of middle of the table and middle to higher up. It's as you know, it paints a rosier picture than actually exists for some whānau because of the great extremes that we have. Very, very nice, comfortable areas, and then we have areas which do not have enjoy such a good outcome. So all of that information that we used to have on the pulse is now available through the Regional Economic Development Agency. And yes, I'd say it looks good, but we should be aware of those families whose joint income is $45,000.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Kia ora. Great report. Very good, Madam Chair. Just as soon as you started with the global situation and that things are seeming to become slightly more risky, have we got any sort of resilience analysis around our reliance on international shipping routes and like our risk being quite a high import-export city? The resilience of our economy, should there be any disruptions to global shipping routes?
Through the chair, I haven't got any research on that. Common sense tells me that we are not very resilient. We're at the end of the trade routes, that if people are saving money or saving fuel, then New Zealand tends to be the one that gets knocked off the shipping rates first. On the other side of that, though, is we have a great reputation and everyone loves us. So at least we're not going to be, we're not going to be a target, hopefully.
I was going to say, I think that's quite a big question for Bill.
Yeah.
You did very well with that, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, I'll just do a look around to see if there's any further questions for the team on any of their updates. Perfect, and then we will move on to EPMO update.
Thank you. I don't know how I can top Bill's stuff. Mine is a lot less exciting. However, I was encouraged by Councillor Simpson's updates at the end of Josh's and the Three Waters reporting, talking about how we improve our data, because that's what our job is. EPMO's job is about improving our data. So, and I also smiled quietly to myself when he mentioned cycle. As you know, and I've talked about it before at my last update, but our focus for the first phase of Project Papahu is implementing a new, improved, much superior version of CAMS. And so we've had a number of project managers from across the organisation involved. They have been providing us feedback on what has worked well, what hasn't worked so well, what can we do to improve the way projects run through here. And so we have now implemented a new PMF. We've finished user acceptance testing. We're getting ready to migrate our data for our current projects into the new PMF. And then we will be training our project managers, and then we will go live around the end of March. So that's our current intent. It's not by design that a lot of the spreadsheets and presentations you've seen are very manual. So a lot of the work that Josh and the teams have pulled together are basically manual spreadsheets. The intent of this update to CAMS is that we be able to push a button and be able to present all sorts of views. So that's what we're really aiming for. The second phase of the project And again, I heard Councillor Simpson talk about it, but it was in relation to how we integrate Magic or our financial data into CAMS. And that is absolutely crucial for the success of this project, for us to get to deliver that. We're now working closely with finance. We're looking at how we might reconfigure or configure the current GL that we have. We've got their team involved full time in terms of helping us pull that information together. And the intent is obviously wanting to start the new financial year with reporting being able to be pulled out of CAMS. So that's our goal, and we're certainly phase one of Papahu has gone very well, and we're on track, and so we're looking forward to getting into phase two, the financial integration. At the same time, we're looking to implement a new change management framework, and for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's really just a way of helping people to understand the impact of change on people and process. And a good example is a project that's underway now called Project ESCA. This is a project that is going to replace our accounts payable system. It means that everybody that currently uses account payable today have to be trained and understood how to do it. And so the change management framework is just a way to help us implement and embed that change. So that's what we're focusing on. And probably the last update is related to the PBI, or Project Business Improvement Group. This is a body that's now been established for approximately 6 months. This is where all the initiatives go to for approval to the way projects are run in the council. So, for example, I know that Sharon has been working on a procurement strategy. That work goes there, as well as the EPMO work and anything else. So, for example, a GL review, if there's going to be impacts on projects, that will go to that body as well. So that is chaired by myself, and we have 4 ELT members involved in that, helping us make prioritisation decisions, resource decisions, etc. So that's going well. And that is my update.
Thank you very much, Bruce. So if I was to summarise where the EPMO is at, just for my own understanding, we're in phase one around data integrity, and then we're into phase two, into data integration, phase three, change management, and then I'm assuming there's a phase 4 in there where we actually get to implement project management improvements and efficiencies.
We have got lots in store, yes indeed. Yeah, we've got a really large work plan. And the challenge is we can only go so fast. You know, the rest of the organisation's also going through quite a bit of change at the moment. We just need to be cognizant of that. But we are chasing really hard a lot of these initiatives, and I'm really excited just with the progress we've made, and also the support from ELT and other members in terms of assisting us to get our work done.
Thank you very much. I'll ask if there's any questions. EPMO, Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. It's probably more a congratulation than a question. I think people recognise that our council is a large organisation, and if you've ever steered a big vessel, it takes a long time to turn an organisation around, get people to collaborate. And what this is a positive story of how well within our organisation we're now collaborating to get systems and processes in place. It'll mean a more efficient and effective outcomes going forward. And I'd just like to congratulate the team for both their patience, because they're relying on other people to do things, and other people have other priorities and other expectations. So it's really important that this does take time, and it is done correctly. And what I'm seeing is really good.
Thank you. It's great to get that endorsement from the top table that we're resourcing and heading in the right direction. So thank you. Right. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I will move us into if there's any discussion on any of the items that we have around the table, and if there isn't, I'm prepared to take a mover and a seconder for accepting the reports. Moved by Councillor Simpson, seconded by Councillor Crown. Any further comments, Councillor Simpson?
Just to endorse the actions of staff, I think we're seeing good progress, and these reports become more transparent to our residents as to what actions we're up to.
Thank you. Councillor Crown? Nothing further. No further comments. I'll open the floor if there's anyone else wishing to speak to the items. There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now I'd like to invite Nick McCool up to present our resource consents activity update. Kia ora, welcome Nick.
Good afternoon. This report provides an update on recent resource consenting activity. For the year end 31 December 2024, NCC received approximately 234 resource consent applications. We held one publicly notified resource consent hearing with a decision expected in the first quarter of this year. For comparison, the year end 31 December 2023, NCC received approximately 273 resource consent applications made up of land use, subdivision, variations and deemed permitted boundary activities. In the reporting period since the October update, there's been a decrease in the number of resource consent applications received by approximately 30% when compared to the same period 12 months prior. However, there has been a significant increase in the number of 224C subdivision certificates/titles issued within the same reporting period, being an increase of approximately 270%. Since the October update, all resource consents were processed within statutory timeframes. The below table illustrates some of the significant or noteworthy applications. 11 West Place, we'll discuss further below. 54 and 55 Hardings Road, further information below, and 230 Gloucester Street, just further information below. 231 Pukatichi Road, the Mission Hills joint venture, stage 2, 2A, has been granted on the 22nd of February 2025, and that includes the Somerset super lot. 65 Munro Street is still under assessment, as is 100 Churchill Drive, Kennedy Road. 68 Franklin Road was the hearing that we had at the end of last year, and like I said, we're expecting a decision likely around March, hopefully. And 162 Waghorn Street remains on hold, and we expect the applications likely to be withdrawn with another application lodged. Regarding 230 Gloucester Street and 27 Lee Road in Taradale, the applicant proposes to undertake a staged redevelopment of the existing supermarket and retail activity, and that includes establishment of 4 commercial retail buildings, including a supermarket and associated signage and an at-grade customer parking. The submitted assessment of environmental effects states the proposal to redevelop the site represents a significant investment in the economy, retailing, offering and amenity of Taradale's town centre. Once the stages of development have been completed, it will result in a 682 square metre Foursquare, like the Foursquare supermarket, a 1,158 metre squares of commercial/retail activity, and at-grade customer parking for 58 vehicles and 16 bicycles. The proposal requires resource consent for a number of reasons, with the overall activity status being discretionary. And I've included the final site plan and one of the montages that show what the site could look like from Lee Road. 54 and 55 Hardings Road, the applicant seeks consent to demolish an existing dwelling situated on number 55 Harding Road, and then to undertake alterations and additions to 54 Harding Road to create a self-contained dwelling, but which is connected to the existing dwelling rather than being a freestanding building. 55 Harding Road is an existing Group 3A contributory heritage item under the Operative District Plan. However, under the proposed district plan, the demolition of the building appears to be a permitted activity. The proposal requires resource consent for a number of reasons, with the overall activity status being discretionary. And there's a little bit difficult to see, but a site layout of what it could look like in the end. And then West Place is a resource consent to subdivide the property, looking at 7 additional residential lots and 1 jointly owned access lot. The proposed lots are all below the 350 metre squared sort of minimum size. However, you can do that with a complying concept plan, which they have included. And Yeah, so subject consent is sought as a controlled activity under Rule 510 of the Operative District Plan and under the Code. So there's a scheme plan there showing the likely layout for potential dwelling sizes, possible open space locations. And yes, that is all.
Thank you very much, Nick. That's a good overview of some of those newer or more interesting developments that we've received applications for. So thank you very much for that overview. I will open it up if there's any questions from elected members. Yeah, Councillor Greig.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Just a question about 65 Munro Street. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one, but that piece of land opposite Pack and Save has been undeveloped for several years. Just wondering if you're able to give us any idea of a time frame for what's happening there?
Through the Chair, I understand that the final Section 92 response has only recently been provided to Council. As you can imagine, it's quite a big project, so there's a lot for us to consider. So I can't really give an exact time frame, but it is progressing.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brown and then Councillor Bogue.
Yeah, kia ora. Thank you. Through the Chair.
Just bring that a little closer.
I'm interested in the Harding Road, mainly around the protections for Group 3 heritage items. So if demolition is a permitted activity, what protections do we have under the operative district plan? And I thought because it was the proposed district plan, the heritage that went in place now. You might be able to answer.
Yeah, if you're happy, Nick, I'll give a little bit of context. My understanding was as part of the heritage assessments done for the proposed district plan, there were a number of changes required to some of the zones and overlays, and Group 3A heritage items were one of the ones where they had to be more specific. So some items have dropped off the currently operative plan in terms of Group 3A heritage status versus where the proposed district plan has got to. I'm looking over at Paulina, who will correct me if I'm wrong, but the weighting of what planning tool you use when an application is made depends on the status of that planning tool at the time. So whether or not it was notified, for instance, which I believe this one was, the planners are able to take into account the proposed district plan as well as the operative plan because of the status of that plan, if that is helpful.
Yeah, that clarifies that. Thank you.
Yes, I couldn't have said it better myself.
I got the nod from our planning manager that was accurate. Thank you, Paulina. Councillor Bogue.
Madam Chair, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought these usually listed the names of the developers of these particularly subdivisions. Is that within the usual information provided?
I'll ask the director to respond.
Thanks, Councillor Bogue. We didn't have names in there. They are provided with the email that we send out to all people who subscribe to that email. We did have Kaingaora name in there, and then, because we didn't have other names in there, we actually took Kaingaora out as well. So as fairness to all applicants, we haven't put any names in. And it is immaterial to the information that we're providing to you.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no further questions, do I have a mover to receive the officer's recommendations? Thank you. Receiving the report, Councillor Crystal, seconded by Councillor Greig. Would you like to make any comment?
It's always quite interesting to see what's going on in our city, and particularly in Taradale, there's some significant investment proposed in our retail space, which looks as a positive thing to happen. So,
thank you, Councillor Crystal. Councillor Greig.
Yes, no further comment. Just thank you to Nick and to staff for preparing this report.
Thank you very much. It is always very positive, as Councillor Crystal said, when people are making applications in the city. So I appreciate that comment. All those in favour of receiving the report, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. I will now close our meeting and we will move pass back over to Senior Councillor Price. Thank you.
2 minutes because I got to public excluded now.